All set. Hi.
Hi, 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 hi. This is
Hi, hi,
quite
hi.
surreal.
That's the name of a Wings song from the 70s. Hi, hi, hi.
I think I know the one. It is. How
Yeah.
are you doing? It's an absolute
uh,
pleasure.
Doing well, thank you. How are you
Good.
doing today?
Very good, thank
Good.
you. Well, I'm at the other end of the day, I think. Have you not long since awoken, I believe? Is it morning time then?
Yeah. We're just past morning here. It's just noon. But for you guys, I guess it's 8 at night, right? Something like
That's right,
that.
yeah. That's right, yeah.
Yeah,
Shutting
okay.
down for the night.
Very good, very good.
But it's a total honor to chat to you. So thank you so much for taking the time out today.
Absolutely. Glad I could do it. Glad I could be here.
Um,
So thank you for taking the time, and we appreciate it. We're obviously ready to promote this wonderful piece of art, this monstrous thing that I've been working on for the past several years, and glad that it's finally being unveiled and shared with the world.
Absolutely, yeah. So the filter is this the album artwork or is this a separate?
Yes.
Yeah,
No, that is the box. Here, let me try and get
amazing,
out of the way. Let me get out of the way of
amazing.
my own box.
It's beautiful.
But yeah,
I
so
love
that's it.
it.
It's if you've ever seen the original Love Left album, it was very simplistic. It was only two colors, a very similar design, of course not heart shape, but it was a square shape. But it was, just two colors. It was purple and white, and it didn't have a lot of those characters, and it just said Love Left with a similar drawing of me. And then we had the original artist who did it. His name is Howard Tiemann. 30 years ago, come back and give us an upgraded, updated version, adding new characters. The characters that you see kind of around me are those songs which are represented by character. So a lot of what you see is different themes and different kind of tones of what the album entails itself. And of course, the original album has been deeply expanded upon. So there's a lot of differences if you ever heard or saw the first album, which, there were only 1,000 copies of the original album made, but it became much bigger in digital years later.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So can you just tell us a little bit about it then? You've been working on it obviously for many, many years. And how does it feel now to kind of have it ready to share with the world in its new state?
Oh my God, I'm so excited to just be done with it. I mean, it's been a labor of love. I mean, obviously, right? A labor of
Sure.
love. But that said, it's also been laborious. I mean, trying to get any project done in the middle of a pandemic is beyond difficult. I mean, we had every obstacle you could imagine from, we're literally getting the boxes made in Pakistan, and imagine getting things shipped over here and shipped on time, with all of the backup we have with the world's shipping challenges and everything that's going on right now. So there's that. That's just one small factor. Then you've got the fact that me and my family were literally locked outside of the United States for an entire year during the process of this being made. It was 10 months to be exact, so two months shy of a year, but yes. And the whole thing was, because of COVID and Trump being president and all of that stuff, it was just a lot going down. And during that time, the best that we could do is lay low and try and keep to ourselves, because we were, we'd gone on, it was like Gilligan's Island. We'd gone on a small vacation after my documentary was released and figured we needed some time off. And instead of a small vacation, we were there for what was supposed to be 10 days, and Trump closed the borders, and that turned into 10 months.
Oh, blimey, gosh, no, I didn't realize you were stuck outside of the US. So it's been a fairly stressful period then, I imagine.
I mean, it was great once we were able to get the borders open. We were able to sneak my engineer in, because what happened was, obviously, because we were in a third world country, they opened their borders far before America opened its borders to our neighbors. So what happened was we were able to get people in to where we were. We just couldn't send them home until, the gates opened.
Right,
So,
okay.
right. So we were able to bring my son and my engineer down to the village where we were staying, and we set up literally a studio by having them transport pieces of my home studio in their luggage. So when they got there, we just set up shop and started kind of, getting back to work finally. So
Wow.
yeah, that was fun. And as a result, we have a couple songs that were obviously heavily influenced by the culture that we were in. So we actually have a song called Na Dirty Up, which is actually written in the Jamaican language, the local Jamaican language, which is where we were at the time when I was inspired to write the song. And it's about keeping the island clean, for all the natives. As an American tourist, our responsibility is to let's clean up after ourselves and not be so rude as to leave our American trash everywhere.
That's awesome. So while it's slightly nostalgic, you've also woven in some kind of topical, I guess, contemporary issues that happened at the time of the recording. So that's quite cool that you've.
Right. Well, as you can see there from the artwork, right, the guy pointing the gun at the gentleman holding the sign. Sure. As you can see that, obviously that was inspired directly by, the sign of the times and what was going on, because we were sitting outside the country watching the whole George Floyd escalation from, that was happening inside the country in the moment in time of this is the moment where we've got to end this racial divide. And so seeing that, and then, if you're familiar with the original album featured a song called By God, which is about racism, which I actually wrote in 1993 about Rodney King riots that were happening at the time the original album came out.
Wow.
So it was this great moment in time for, racial discord and, enough is enough. And so I wrote this song By God kind of as a reflection of that time period. And then ironically, what this album was a remix and remaster. That's what it started as. It started as just a regular, hey, let's clean this up, brush it up using the original master tapes and transferring them to digital. So that became the original project. But Don Dawkin became the curator of the tapes. The legendary rock god from the 80s, he actually jumped in and said, hey, I know how to bake these tapes. I can do the digital transfer for you. And I was like, that's amazing. So he's the one who was kind enough to get the process started. And once we did, we realized we had additional songs that were never released. So that's when I decided, hey, maybe we should expand this, add a new song or two, do a few new things, freshen up the songs, remix, remaster. And it just kind of kept growing and growing and growing. As the pandemic went on, it was like, well, I've got more time, might as well just record more music. And that turned into a brand new album. But as part of all that process, ironically, the one song that I couldn't find the original masters to was By God. All the other songs on the album are perfectly remixed. We found the original tracks, we cleaned them up. It looks great, it sounds great. And then we get to By God and it's not there. We don't have it. And I'm like, what are we going to do? So we decided to re-record the entire song from scratch, which is a pretty complicated song because there's a lot of instrumentals. There's horn sections and backup singers. It's actually a duet with this incredibly talented vocalist from the 90s, who now we have replaced her with Roberta Freeman from Pink Floyd and Guns N' Roses, who did an incredible job, of course. But anyway, so it's ironic because the very same song that we wrote at the last moment of trial and tribulation for the racist agenda and all of that became now this moment in time where we were finally waking up, where we were finally, seeing that, hey, enough is enough and it's time to move on. And so to be able to write, not really write, but produce a remake of that song and then add a few new vocals, a few new lyrics, a few new things to kind of modernize it. It was just a really special moment in time. And I think it couldn't have happened in any other way.
Really,
it was meant to be.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it seems a bit sort of fate-like that you lost the original and had to work on this new one. Would you say that
exactly?
Do you think that the title "Love Left"? I don't know if you can remember what it originally meant to you, but would you say that the meaning of it has evolved for you as well over time and with the new release?
Yes, I mean, I think at the time, I was reflecting on what the 90s was about, because in the 80s everything was like bright and fluffy and and fun and neon and laser tag and and pump hairdos, and everybody was just using their Aquanet and having a great old time and kind of in this drone of reality. Like we're in this happy bubble, and nobody's going to break the happy bubble. I feel that was like the 80s. Everything was untouchable. Celebrities were untouchable. Everything was so much fun. And then you got to the 90s and it was like this dark cloud came over, and all of a sudden you had grunge, and you had, gangster rap, and you had all these things that were entering our artistic realm that just weren't there before. And it got to be a kind of dark and scary time. And that's really before I think everything started to change in the 2000s. So, it was a really dark and scary time. And I think that's what the album Love Left means. I think that's what it reflects. It reflects my purview of an escalating world and an ever deafened world. It was like love has left us. Love has left us. The love that we felt in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, and the movements of bringing us closer together and understanding and peace and love and all of that stuff was just suddenly gone by the wayside. And now it was all about who can come up with the biggest insult, who can, disrespect each other the most, who can get away with the most, who can dress the scuzziest on stage, who can look like they don't care enough. It was just, the whole thing flip-flopped on its head. And that's what the album is a reflection of.
Yeah.
And now, it's kind of like, well, it's time for love to return, as opposed to love leaving at this juncture. I feel like this is the time where it's a culmination of all the positive beings on our planet, really coming together and focusing our energy, shifting our energy to buy back the love, to bring back the love, to recapture that feeling of innocence. And I think that's where we're at.
I love that. Would you say there's a particular song on the project that encapsulates that the most, or is it more of a full playlist experience?
We have luckily there's 18 new songs or 17 new songs, something like that, somewhere in there. I don't mark my words on it because it's not finally pressed yet, but but somewhere between 17, 18 songs. And it's again a wide, dynamic range. Now the first album only had 9 songs. So interestingly enough, the sequel, which is called Love Left 2, Arm Me With Love, has exactly double the amount of songs that the original album had. So it's bigger, it's better, it's badder. And the topics are much more far-ranging, wide-ranging. And one of the songs I think that kind of hits the nail on the head is a song called That Song. And it's a really fun, upbeat kind of song, but it also talks about kind of like all the crap we've been through for the last few years. It talks about COVID, and it talks about having to wear masks and not being able to go out and enjoy each other and communicate with people, and that loss of personal touch. And my son actually helped me write that. So it was the first song that he co-wrote with me, and he's now 17 years old. So that was exciting.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he's right around the age that I was when I started putting out music. So it's pretty cool to be able to share that with him. And then there's, other stuff like, again, such a wide dynamic of music in there. But the first song, the first real single that we're putting out, which will be out in a couple of weeks, is called Comeback King. And I think it kind of, hits the nail on the head, because like nobody's been able to like go further down the dark rabbit hole than me and somehow always resurface, right? So Here I am yet again resurfacing through this song and through this album. And we have a very special feature on it, which is a guy named Curtis Young, who happens to be Dr. Dre's kid. Yeah. So this is like his premiere breakout single. And we're really excited to have him and to feature him. And I just think it's going to be an incredible collaboration. So many great collaborations, from Don Dawkin to Curtis Young to Roberta Freeman. It's all over the place. And then the art, the art was created, as I said, by Howard Tiemann, who, the original artist, went on to become a very famous artist of poster drawing. He drew all these very famous posters, which were on all the storefronts in Hollywood, on Hollywood Boulevard, up and down the tourist area. And he would do these things called like rock and roll after hours at the after hours, or, partying in heaven. And he would take these themes of like dead rock stars and putting them in odd positions or putting them with other dead rock stars. And, it became a very famous poster that he would draw many, many renditions of through the years. He did like all the presidents. It's just crazy. But
that's
great
really cool.
art. Yeah, it's really cool. And it was in every store during the 90s and, like the early aughts. And the fact that now we're kind of bringing him back in a renaissance with his first full color display, because he always worked in black and white. And then the artist who colorized it is actually a Grammy nominated artist himself, who actually got nominated for the Brian Wilson Smile box set back about 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So pretty cool to have that connection as well, right? Because it kind of does have a 60s Beatle-esque Beach Boys kind of vibe, right?
Sure, yeah.
So,
that's incredible. Yeah. So it's a huge collaborative project then. Is this all just via the networking that you've done over the years? Or did you have kind of a hit list of people that you wanted to get in touch? Like, how did you connect with Curtis, for example?
I don't even remember how Curtis and I met. It was one of those, like, through a friend of a friend, but he came to my studio one day and, I knew who he was, obviously. And I welcomed him to my house, and he came into the studio and I said, "Oh, let me play you some things I've been working on." And he heard some of my beats, because I make my own beats, whether I'm sitting behind the drums or I'm doing it to a machine. I still like to be the guy that kind of creates the beat at the end of the day. And I played him some of my stuff and he went just bananas. Like, he was like, dude, you got the beats, man. You really do this yourself? Like, he couldn't believe like a white kid was doing, these cool beats, right? Nice. So yeah, we hit it off instantly. And then, we were friends for several years before I kind of got the idea to, like, hey, let's do this song together. It's Comeback King. It's fitting, right? Like, this is your intro, your entree to the world. And you are the disciple, the son of a great king in the music industry. So, sure. Yeah.
So what about the heart-shaped box of love addition to the album, the box set? How did that idea come about, and what's that been like as a creative process alongside the music?
Well, let me tell you, making a 2-foot heart-shaped box that looks like a rainbow is not easy, it turns out, during a pandemic. My assistant probably gave me no less than 30 emails saying, "Corey, seriously, would you please just listen to me? You're going to save yourself $20,000 if you just cut the heart-shaped box. Please just cut the damn box. We'll do it in a square box. We'll do it in a circle box. I don't care. Just not a heart-shaped." And I was like, I got to do it. It's the love returns. It's Love Left 2.1. I have to do this. How can you say love is coming back and not put it in a giant box of candy? So of course there was no candy in it, but we had to literally have these made personally from scratch. Each one was handmade and then created, on a line, right? So it was very complicated to get it done. We have gotten it done, as you can see by the demo. It is in process. The boxes are being printed as we speak. So I'm very pleased, very happy. And the reason why we needed such a big box is because there's so much good stuff inside. Yeah. It's a 6-disc set. So there's 4 CDs of music, 2 DVDs, and then a full 50-page color magazine. That's great. It looks like a teen magazine, but it's a collector's edition. It's called 22 because my lucky number is 22.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, the whole theme of my life, like my last album, Angelic to the Core, was a double album that had 22 songs. My book, Choreography, had 22 chapters. So it was only fitting, I think, for us to have this, somehow associated with 22. Yeah. And that was the idea. So we've got this 2.1, box set where we've got 4 great CDs. We've got a 22 magazine. We've got 2 DVDs, and we're releasing so much stuff that fans are going to go nuts over, because, if anybody knows anything about me, I've always stayed away from ever boxing myself into the 80s. I've always stayed away from doing 80s press or doing 80s events, or, they always wanted to make me the 80s guy. And I always remember thinking of the Monkees when I was in the 80s and I was a kid, I remember seeing the Monkees on all the teen magazines as these like older guys coming back as a reunion. And I remember thinking, gosh, every time they do anything, it's got to be called back to the 60s. It's got to be like, oh, 60s event hosted by the Monkees, or the 60s, you know, fallback, and it's the Monkees. And, you know, and I remember going like, boy, that would suck to be labeled and boxed into one era of time.
Yeah.
And since I had, you know, number one hits in the 70s and 80s and 90s and even in the 2000s, why would I want to categorize myself in that way? Because it would be immediately boxing me into something that, you know, I couldn't get out of or I couldn't change in the future. So I made a very kind of hard stance with like, I'm not doing anything 80s related at all. Other than the one Katy Perry video that I did where we kind of did the callback to the 80s, you know, but even then we didn't say it, and it could have easily been early 90s, right?
Yeah.
But with this, it was like, okay, if we're going to go back and we're going to actually release for the first time music from the 80s, video from the 80s, why not make this whole thing a callback to where it all started, which was obviously my music started in the 80s. My acting started in the 70s, but my music started in the 80s. Yeah. So why not, you know, remind people of where I came from and show them, because, you know, the other thing that I found ironic was I'm pretty self-aware, and I try to be very keeping my finger sort of on the pulse of what's happening in society and with my fans directly. I have a good communication, a very direct communication with my fan base. And so we call them the Feld fam. And, you know, I try to listen to what they want, what they, you know, want to see or hear or whatever. And the one thing that kept coming up was like, you know, we want to know where it all started. You know, how did it all start? So it's like, okay, well, let's go back to the beginning. Let me show you these early recordings that I never felt were good enough to put out. You know, some of them now have been remixed and remastered, so they actually sound pretty decent. And some of them are just as crappy quality as they were in the beginning. And one of those things, which I'll be releasing, I believe, next week after my auction is done, is going to be the video. I'm just going to put it up for free on YouTube, but it was my very first music video, which I actually wrote, directed, choreographed, and recorded the music for when I was 15 years old and living in my dad's apartment in Hollywood. So you're going to be able to see me kind of in this time capsule at 15 years old, you know, like I looked in Lost Boys, singing and dancing with my own choreography, which like nobody's ever seen that, right? You've only seen me like Dream a Little Dream Forward. You've seen me singing and dancing, but not before that. So it's really cool that now you're going to get to see for the first time what I was like as a dorky kid dancing around in my living room or my dad's living room. Yeah. Nice. And then there's going to be the song that goes along with it, which we actually already snuck out there on the EP, because we have an EP, which is a picture disc, which featured 8 songs from the upcoming box set. And that's available now. You can buy it at my website, coreyfeldman.net. It's a really cool collection. As I said, it's only 8 songs, very limited edition. We only made 200 of them, and we have about 50 left for sale on my website, which can also be signed. So that's pretty cool. And that'll hold everybody over, hopefully, until December when the box set actually arrives.
Nice one. It's admirable the way that you interact with your fans, actually, as you brought it up. It's, I suppose, extremely different now than it was 20, 30 years ago, that you're able to have this connection with them so instantly as well. Do you think that changes your perspective? Because I know I've seen you say in interviews previously that you're inspired by the way that Michael Jackson used to tell you that to kind of have respect for your fans and when you meet them and that kind of thing. Do you find it easier now, or has it changed the way that you view them at all? The fact that you're able to be so direct with them?
I don't think it's changed the way that I view them, but it has changed the ability to break through to them and to have this very kind of intimate personal exchange, which has been incredible because, you know, for many years, you know, you get the fan mail and you read the fan mail and it's very touching and it moves you, or you meet fans out in public and they come give you a hug or they take pictures with you or whatever. And that's wonderful, but it's few and far between. And the more I have to have security around me because of, you know, stupid threats and things like that I've dealt with, you know, there's a bigger and bigger separation between that personal connection, that personal contact with the fans. So, you know, having the opportunity to do this, to go on social media, to answer them directly, to have that kind of direct message opportunity where you can actually get to know them, you know, or doing Zoom calls with them, or, you know, there's just so many ways now that we can connect, that makes it real. You know, I'm just a real guy, you're just real people, and we're now able to finally connect and share that communication, that love, that energy, that vibration between us in a very real way. It's amazing. It's beautiful. So I love social media for that reason.
Yeah.
The thing I don't love social media for is the negative through line that seems to be a constant, which is, you know, that these terrible people spend their day doing nothing other than trying to harass other people, troll other people, bully other people. And that is why, you know, a lot of the work we're doing right now is, for example, the auction that we have coming up for my ear, which is going to happen on Friday. I don't know if this interview will air before that or not, but Friday through Sunday this weekend, we're doing this auction for my ear from Stand By Me. And that's kind of kicking off this whole NFT space that I've been ready to launch for the last few months. We've been working on, and we're going to be releasing a lot of the artifacts through the years. But anyway, one of the great things about being able to do that is being able to directly tell the fans, hey, this is what's going on, or that's, you know, that event is coming. Now you can own a piece of this, you can own a piece of the history. So it's making those connections in whatever ways you can. And it's been a really great, fun process and a fun time. But again, the only thing that really hurts me is when you see these trolls that go out of their way to spread misinformation, to spread lies, or to just take up your space with negative energy. You know, there's no need for it. And that's why I was about to lead into, so with the NFT, with the auction, we are donating money to an organization called Let Me Help, which is actually an anti-bullying organization. And one of the things they do is they help kids who've been bullied or had cancer issues, or also had COVID, or, you know, issues regarding COVID. So any of those three ways that children have been inadvertently, you know, affected, we have, you know, found a way to try and raise money for them, or bring them some fortuitiveness. So that's kind of the idea.
That's brilliant. And what about live shows? Do you think you'll be bringing any of that into it? And obviously COVID puts restrictions on, but do you have anything planned?
That's the ultimate goal. My ultimate goal is to get back on the road as soon as possible. Obviously, I would have loved to do it this year, but as we've been crammed down working on getting all of this ready to launch, it would have been impossible, I feel, to be on the road and get this done. And then it would have gotten pushed to next year. So, you know, to get it out by Christmas, our whole goal was like, just stay hunkered down. You know, we want to get out, we want to have fun, we want to see people again, but for now we got to get the project finished. Now that it's almost done, and once it's complete and delivered and out, I don't think there'll be much stopping me, unless, of course, God forbid, there's another lockdown. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're out of the woods.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, exactly.
In terms of the writing, just as a quick sort of closer, do you have a favorite lyric from the album, and one that comes to mind that you'd like to share?
God, there's so many. That's a tough one. It's, you know, 18 songs plus. Actually, well, let me back that up. The box set has 60 songs.
Yeah, that's
60,
what I read.
60. Yeah,
amazing.
So it's like 18 that have not been released. Previous tracks that have never come out for whatever reason, demos or unreleased material. And then I think there's 17 on the new album, and then there's the karaoke album, or karaoke album, which is 10 songs, and then there's the remake of the original album, which was 9 songs. So it's a lot of stuff.
Okay. All right, I'll let you off, unless you can. Did any come to mind at all?
The only thing I would say is that the one that's been ever since we started talking about it was from that song, where it's like, oh God, what is the exact lyric? This is tough. COVID's ruined everything. Can't talk, can't breathe, can't even sing, because COVID's ruined everything. This mask is stifling. I can't wait to breathe again, live again. Oh, and I forgot the rest of it, but it's all about that. It's all about that. Yeah,
capturing the moment.
About wanting to get back out into the world and being part of society, and let me out, for God's sakes. Yes. We're ready to interact. Yeah. So we want to share the love. I mean, and the funny thing is, we even called last summer the Summer of Love, because it was like Love Returns. The EP came out, and we expected we were going to do a giant birthday party. And that was my plan. I was going to do this big 5.0 party, because this whole thing is centered around my 5.0 anniversary and 50 years of entertainment. And so that's why we're like digging through the vaults, and I'm releasing all these artifacts, and I'm releasing all this music and video that's never been released before. And so I'm like, oh yeah, we'll do a big celebration for 5.0. We'll call it the Summer of Love. And then it was like, not just yet. Like literally, it was like weeks before everything fully opened back up, when my birthday hit. So unfortunately, there was no pre-planning that was able to happen, because the venues weren't even open to like have a discussion with them. You know what I mean? And then it was like everything rushed open, and then it was open. And now it was like, okay, now you got to try and book something at the last minute, and good luck, because everybody's like clawing over each other to get a booking. So true. I have a feeling that the summer of 2022 is going to be the real Summer of Love, because that's when we'll be able to be out there amongst you and touring, and hopefully we'll make it to England. Hopefully we'll make it all over the world. Oh, I would love it so much. You have no idea. If any promoters, if any tour booking agents or promoters are watching this that want to bring a cool kid from LA over to London to tour with his band, please call me, because I'm here and waiting. I would love to get over there, and I would love to perform in front of all of you.
Amazing. Well, fingers crossed, summer 2022 then. Sounds like the one.
That's it. Fingers crossed.
Huge congratulations on everything anyway. And I wish you all the best for the release. And hopefully I get to catch up with you again soon. But I'm looking forward to hearing it all in full. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. It's an absolute honor.
In the meantime, check out Feeling Funky, because Feeling Funky is still available streaming.
Massive tune on Spotify and all the platforms. Yeah, brilliant one. Definitely.
You liked it?
I love that tune. We've been streaming it constantly here. So yeah, it's a good one.
Good. All right, good. Well, then you're going to love Comeback King, because Comeback King is even funkier. So Just wait.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait. Thank you so much. It's
awesome. Thank you so much.
Have a great day.
You. Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Rebecca.